Amira's advised that she's definitely called Shaw this week, and the internet has been reset and refreshed. So if it cuts out, you can all back me up with suing. So first things first is, and I'm gonna say this straight, stop being so fucking hard on yourselves, all of you. A lot of the check-ins this week focused on the one thing you've done wrong, the one thing you've missed, rather than the 4 or 5 that you've done right. And Louisa's just come in at a perfect time. I'm going to wait for Louisa. Louisa, I've just said, wait, I'm waiting until Louisa's in the call. Louisa's in. Louisa, I've just said to everyone, stop being so fucking hard on yourselves. And the reason I waited for you here is because you're a prime example. You had a great week and you focused on one thing that went wrong, and you're not the only one. A few people on the call gave a bit of a giggle when I said this because they got a telling off in their check-ins as well. And the reason I want people to stop being so hard on themselves is because self-criticism leads to like a feeling of that you can't do something. You're focusing on, right, I am doing a challenge. I'm doing this challenge. The goal is to complete this challenge. The more you tell yourself you're doing something wrong, or the more you're telling yourself that you're not quite getting there, the more likely you are to sort of give up and say like, oh, do you know what? Eliminate's not for me. It's too hard. And there's like, I can speak to, I'm going to pick on you here, Zoe. Zoe's someone who has been hard on herself. Zoe's been with me for a little while with one-to-one coaching, obviously come into Eliminate. Zoe's in unbelievable shape, and sorry to put you under pressure here, Zoe, but there's been so many times where we've literally just had to go, you're doing fine, have a look at your photos, look at the progress, stop focusing on that one thing that you've done wrong. And Rooney, you've just come into the chat as well. You're someone who focuses on the one thing. As soon as we say, look at the things you've done right, you've gone, do you know what, it wasn't a bad week. And that's what I want you all to sort of start doing. The way Eliminate check-ins are planned are name the 3 things you've done well, name the one thing you want help with. And it is to sort of change that mindset, is to be like, I can do this, I will do this, I have made progress. If I make this progress for 8 weeks, week on week, I might not see massive changes, but over the 8 weeks, it will be a huge step forward. And that's what we want to see. So yeah, go easy on yourselves and focus on the things that you're doing well, because if you had it all perfect by the end of week 2, none of you would be on this call. You'd probably, unless you were sitting where I'm sitting and you've had it all nailed down. But yeah, it's a learning curve, and each week is to implement something new. So that is all I want from you guys, is go that little bit easier. And then the next thing we focused on, which I picked up massively, was I think a lot of people are still sort of tracking food on the go, and they're falling short on things like protein, or their macros are like all over the place. And this is usually a sign of like, you get to the end of the day, you're like, shit, I've got 3 grams of carbs and 20 grams of protein to hit with 5 grams of fat, unless I just go to the cupboard and start cooking a chicken breast to eat on its own. I'm not going to hit my macros. So the idea of meal prep and sort of hitting macros is try and get the majority of your food tracked in advance. So what I mean by that is like, have a good understanding of what you're probably going to eat for the next couple of days. And having some staple meals, you don't have to plan out every single breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack. It's have an idea of what you would probably most likely eat, and obviously have some staples in there. And the more you do this and the more you track, the easier it becomes. So if I went on my fitness pal now, on like my own personal one, and we went to my meals, you would see a hell of a lot of saved meals. So for example, anyone who's been with me for a while, Zoe, Kaylee, you've probably heard all this before, but like my sort of rotation for my breakfast tends to be like eggs or porridge. Who's seen me post my porridge on Instagram? Be honest, put in the chat, just give me a little why. Who's seen, where's the chat? I don't even have the chat up. Give me a little why if you see me post my porridge. Always, yes. So the reason, how often do I post it? Like, as in, have you ever seen me post like many other breakfasts? Maybe an omelette now and again. So that porridge is a staple meal in my sort of food library. And the reason I've got that in is I know it starts my day right. I know that I've got a good hit of protein, good hit of carbs, and I put some fats in it. So I know that from that, when I'm dieting, I'm already off to a good start. Anyone able to tell me, other than Zoe or Kaylee or Amira, what I tend to eat for lunch? I'll see if anyone knows that, and so I might not post it enough. Anyone's got an example? I need to start posting this. Right. Yeah, chicken wrap. If I'm not, there you go. Amira, you're cheating. You see me make it. But I tend to have, like, when I'm dieting, like chicken fajita lunch. And the reason I have that sort of chicken fajita lunch is it's a good macro hitter. This is probably a better thing and a better example of why I have the chicken fajitas as a staple, because I put in chicken, peppers, courgette, and a fajita spice, old El Paso fajita spice. And the reason that sort of stays in there as a staple is because it's a massive hit of protein. I think it's like 40 grams of protein. And then I can do what I want with that. If I'm at a higher end of my diet and I need more carbs, I can have that with a whole bag of rice. If I'm in a mid-range of diet, I can have it with half a bag of rice. And if I'm at like the lower end of the diet, final phases, I can change that into a salad. And that changes, that staple there changes from what could be a 250 calorie, 300 calorie meal right up to a 500, 550 calorie meal without changing too much. So when it comes down to tracking in advance, I've got that meal saved. And that's what I mean by that is I've got a library of things that I can use now and again. And I'll always be like, right, for lunch, I need about 400 calories and 25 plus grams of protein. I know, right, I can use tomorrow or this week, I can have my chicken fajitas, or I might make a stir fry, a pasta, bolognese, like the same sort of meals that I always sort of keep in my library as well. I'll use them as an example. And that's basically what I want you to start doing is if you create any sort of staple meals which have like 25 grams plus of protein and probably under that 500 calorie mark, and it's something you can rotate, save it in MyFitnessPal as one of your meals because it will help you going forward. So does that make sense of what a staple meal is? Just give me a little yes in the comments box. I sort of went off on one there. Yeah, so staple meal is something that you know you can consistently sort of have, and you can sort of make amends just to make sure you're along the right lines with when it comes to your sort of fitness goals. And then the next thing is, right, is anyone actually, before I start, is anyone struggling with meal prep? Paula, yeah. Paula, well done for speaking up. Where do you find it hard for meal prep? Is it time? Is it knowledge? Is it
time, really?
Yeah. So, and is it because your meal prep does your meal prep take you longer than like half an hour, 45 minutes?
Yeah, it would do, yeah.
So would you say it's fair to say you've probably got like half an hour to make meal prep, because you'd make your lunch or your dinner in that time anyway, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to meal prep, the two things that you want to do is, one, make it simple, make it easy. And two, make sure obviously it's something you enjoy. So the idea is to get yourself, again, one of your staple meals that is 25, 30 minutes, but you can meal prep that for 3 or 4 days. And it obviously helps with hitting your macro. So for example, that chicken fajita staple I used before takes me 25 minutes to cook, so and about 5-10 minutes to prepare. And that can do me 4 days. So I'll just buy a pack of like 3 peppers, pack of 3 courgettes, put the fajita spice on, 600 grams chicken, done. Do you know what I mean? So I know that if I've got a busy week, like my Mondays are obviously really busy because obviously I do all the ELIMIN8 check-ins, do my one-to-one clients, and then I've got this call. So I know if I don't make my meal on a Sunday and I've got to make something on a Monday, I'm not even going to think about trying to get anything else in. My next 3-4 days is going to be the chicken pitas, because it's the only thing that I know I can make in that sort of time that's going to be able to set me for the week. And that that is, and when it comes down to meal prep, the one thing I would say you should always start with is your lunch. So a lot of people naturally, when it comes to meal prep, will think, right, what can I prep my breakfast? And they start putting yogurt into all these jam jars. Amira, sorry for digging you out here. My house is full of jam jars filled with yogurts and stuff. And then they think, right, my lunch, or I better start with my dinner because I know I get tired in the evening. So if I prep my dinner and then all of a sudden you've done a £300 Waitrose shop, your kitchen's upside down because you tried to prepare 22 meals in half an hour and there's just mess everywhere. If you start with just your lunch, it makes things a hell of a lot more simple, because most of us probably work in either like an office or we work at the job that we go to. And obviously you're there 9 times out of 10 for your lunch. So if you've got your lunch prepared, you're never going to be too far away from going off track. So most of us, when we go off track, it's like, is because we're not prepared for lunch. So we go and pick something up for lunch, go to sandwich shop, pick up a sandwich, pick up a pack of crisps, and then that's into the evening. Whereas you tend to be at home for dinner and you tend to be at home for breakfast, or even if you like someone who has breakfast at work, you know the type of things that you can pick up for breakfast are a hell of a lot easier than and lower calorie compared to your lunch. So always start meal prepping your lunch. Have a staple that you enjoy and is easy to cook, and that will be the baseline of all your meal prepping going forward. Does that make you don't anymore? Does that make sense? Paul, I'm going to dig you out. Does that make things a little bit more easier for reference?
Yeah, I've actually got my lunch ready for tomorrow, which I'm quite impressed with myself. I had leftover chicken, so I've got a chicken wrap ready for tomorrow for my lunch.
Yeah, and that's literally it, because like I said, most of us are always at work when it comes to lunchtime. So if we didn't meal prep our breakfast, we can easily, like most of us probably have on a diet, yogurt, eggs, etc., or oats for breakfast. If anyone has a smoothie or something, I haven't really seen too much different to that when it comes to dieting. Eggs are really easy to make in the morning. Yogurt you don't even need to make, you can pick up from the shop if you're really struggling. Even things like boiled eggs or scrambled eggs are really easy to pick up on your way to work. So that's why I would say you don't really stress about meal prep and breakfast. And same with dinner, is like you tend to have a bit more time in the evening, or you tend to be at home in the evenings. So you don't necessarily always need to meal prep your dinner there and then. If you're struggling for time, like on a Sunday, and you think, right, I'm really tired that I can't be asked doing a full meal prep, just start with your lunch, make your lunch on the Sunday. So you're covered Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you can always make your dinner Monday night for the rest of the week. So that's what I would say is meal prep, start with your lunch. It will make things a hell of a lot easier. Any questions on sort of, I'm going to go back to self-criticism and meal prep and tracking in advance. Does everyone know what I mean by tracking in advance?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I would always try and track. You don't have to track like every single meal in advance. Just make sure that you've got an idea of the majority. And the more you do this, and anything that you have as a staple meal, save in. So if I actually get up my Fitness Pal today, like I've actually put in my full amount of calories for today. I don't know about it. Sorry, mine's a lot higher. I shouldn't really show that on a diet, but I'm coming out of diet phase after my photo shoot. But like it's in there and it's done because I know what I'm having for dinner. And that way I can look at it, and before I have my snacks in the evening, I'll be like, oh, do you know what? I had an extra latte today. Instead of that snack I was going to have, I'll just take that out to get me the 200 calories back. And you're pretty much, you're covered. So yeah, just have ideas. And like I said, the more you're learning and seeing like ideas in the group and you think, do you know what, that's a staple meal that I could have, save that in my Fitness Pal. So tomorrow you can be like, right, I don't know what I want for dinner, but if I have the same breakfast and lunch, scan it in, that leaves me 600 calories for dinner and I need to hit 20 grams of protein. So it doesn't really matter what I have. I just know whatever I want for dinner tonight has to fit that amount. Okay, cool. Next thing is weekends. And this comes off the back or quite nicely of tracking in advance. We have 3 options when it comes to weekends and tracking. We'll cover things in a bit more depth, but your main thing for weekends are the 3 options. You've got 1, you can track absolutely everything, which is obviously your best call. But I get not everyone wants to track everything at weekends. Option 2 is you don't track anything at all and you sort of eat sensible. Option 3 is obviously you meet somewhere in the middle where you might track your breakfast and your lunch and you have a meal untracked in the evenings. The goal is probably for most of you to get to a point of where, you know what, you keep an idea on your food during the week and you probably have untracked weekends. That is probably the goal for most people. People say, will I always have to track food forever? No, you don't have to, but it does help. And that comes down to personal preference. So we will talk about, we'll start with best case scenario, tracking food at weekends, right? So if you know you're out Saturday night and you're stressing a little bit of food, you know you're going for, someone give me an example. What we're going for, Italian, Thai. Is anyone out for dinner this weekend? First one to speak up is getting direct help. Where are you out for dinner, Abby?
I'm the Italian on the Colombre, the Ristorante
Cafe
Italia.
Restaurant Italia.
So I'm wetting myself because obviously it's all bread, carbs, and yeah. I really have got no idea how I'm going to track that.
Well, well done for speaking up because you're getting direct help, and it's probably my favourite restaurant that I go to. I'm on a first name basis. I call up and they don't even ask who it is. They just hear my voice, know my order, and then I go pick it up. So, for example, like we've got tracking a cafe restaurant Italia is perfect example because it's not chain food. So if we knew we're going out for dinner at the weekend and we're trying to be smart, we're trying to be sensible, so we're going to put something there in advance. So let's just say, for example, generic here, spaghetti bolognese, right? So you could just go into MyFitnessPal now, Saturday night, type in spaghetti bolognese. You'll probably see it will give you some examples, and I'm going to do this live on the call. So let me just go to tomorrow for dinner, and I'm just going to type in spaghetti bolognese. So I've already got one saved. So that doesn't help. Spaghetti bolognese. And you'll see there's a hell of a lot of options. And you'll see the top ones are like 530 calories, 580, 137. You know, it's obviously a spaghetti bolognese from a restaurant. It's not going to be 137. It's not going to be 200. So a lot of these portions are actually in and around 500 calories. So what I would always do is sort of look for the average, and I'd always take the highest average. So there's some at 530, some at 580. And so I would probably take the ones at 580. But you know yourself, what I always tend to do with a meal out is add in a teaspoon of olive oil as well. So I do like spaghetti bolognese and a teaspoon of olive oil because that's just going to bump it up. Or you can use like a chain food. So if we go spaghetti bolognese and we type in, let's say a chain food in, does anyone know any chain Italian restaurants? I've gone for
Bella Italia.
Bella Italia, there we go. Spaghetti bolognese, Bella Italia. If I type that in now, you now get a serving size there of Bella Italia, 688 calories for spaghetti bolognese. I would say that's pretty fair. So I would go and put that in, and then I'd work the rest of my day around it. And you'd obviously probably take it to higher day. So that's option one, is you track your food. The best way to do it is probably use a chain restaurant if you can. If not, type in the word generic and then like spaghetti bolognese, and you'll get an idea of what everything is. And then obviously you work your rest of the day around that. When it comes to, obviously, let's work it backwards. Say we go for sort of a meal and you're not sure what you want. So, because part of the fun of obviously going to a restaurant is looking at the menu, sitting there for 5 minutes, letting everyone else order so you can make your decision and ask everyone what you get and what you get. And that's probably the next option. So what I would do on something like this, again, have an idea of where I'm going. So for example, again, we might be going for an Italian. We know the best part of any meal out is probably going to, spaghetti bolognese is probably one of the lighter ones. you're probably looking at the best part of 750 to 1,250 calories for a meal at a dinner at a restaurant. I always say lunch is probably a little bit lighter. You're probably looking about 500, 700 for lunch. Dinner that little bit more. So what you would do is you would track half your day and leave a certain amount for the evening. So for example, if I had 1,600 calories as a higher day, I'd probably track 600 calories and then leave 1,000 calories for my evening meal, which meant obviously I didn't have to pick what I wanted in advance. I could go to the meal, look at the restaurant, look at the menu, get involved with the conversation, be like, right, this is what I fancy now I'm at the restaurant. And then you've got two options. You either just write it off as 1,000 calories and don't track it. So you'd do like 600 plus dinner, or you would go back and track it afterwards after you've ate it. If it's slightly over, you've already eaten it, don't stress. Do you know what I mean? Just get up the next day, get your steps in, get some water in. That's the second option. And then option 3 is, and I'm going to pick on you here, Louisa. Louisa's at a wedding at the weekend, and assuming obviously weddings either like a close friend or you're not really going to have a choice in what you eat. It's all given to you. So you can't do too much in terms of tracking food at a wedding. And same as like if you're ever away for a weekend, I wouldn't really ask someone to track whilst they're away, but you would keep your meal sittings down. So rather than say, for example, in the week, you might have breakfast, lunch, dinner and snack, you would probably remove your snack because you're gaining 250 to 300 calories back, and you would just eat that little bit lighter in the day. And I would go for sort of like along the lines of like eggs or yogurts or smoothies for breakfast, sort of salads for lunch, because when you're away for a weekend, it's your evening meals that tend to be a little bit heavier. Actually, I need help. Girls, when you're on a hen do, what tends to be the heaviest meal? Is it the brunch, breakfast, brunch, or is it the evening meal? It's a brunch, isn't it?
Brunch.
Yeah, brunch. So
Again, the alcohol,
yeah. But when you obviously for like that, what you would do is you would probably potentially skip breakfast because you know brunch is going to be heavier, and then obviously try and eat a little bit lighter in the evening. So you tend to pick like 1 to 2 lighter meals and obviously one heavier meal. If you're away for a week's holiday, it's a little bit different. So there, your 3 options is you either track everything, track in advance, or you leave yourself a certain amount of calories. Or if you can't track, like Louisa, you're at the wedding, I wouldn't expect Louisa to track her day at the wedding. I would say eat a little bit lighter in the day, really like breakfast because you know the wedding's going to be lunchtime. You probably have your 3 courses there again, and then it comes down to like not being greedy. And I know that sounds pretty obvious, but it's, if it goes in your mouth and it's not tracked, it's still gonna, your body's still gonna adapt to how it was taken. So just be sensible on when it comes to like food that's not being tracked. And it's the same as like if you're out for a restaurant and you are giving yourself sort of 1,000 calories for a meal, go and pick in a 2,000 calorie pizza, a double bacon cheeseburger, a king size portion of lasagna. You know that's not 1,000 calories. Do you know what I mean? So you want to make sure when eating out, you avoid anything in like cream, cheese, oils, and you're probably going to put yourself in a good position. And the main thing that you want to do is think about what, if you were to make it yourself, the less ingredients in a meal, the lower calorie it's going to be. That's always a good suggestion. So my main things that I look for when I'm picking a restaurant and a meal out is the 2 things that I'll look at is like, look at the best 5 options on a menu in terms of calories. Do I like something in that top 5? If I don't like something in that top 5, or it's just like fish and veg, which I would never eat, and I wouldn't even eat that on a diet at any point because I don't like it, I would look at, right, can I avoid something in the bottom 5? And if you're somewhere in the middle, if you're in the top 5 or somewhere in the middle, you're probably never going to be too far away from being okay. So that covers a lot of eating out at weekends. Is everyone happy with that? Abby, in terms of pasta and Friday, and obviously I know you said you're stressing a little bit, opt for something that's like tomato based over sort of cream based. So like you would pick a bolognese over a carbonara.
Okay.
And like I said, the spaghetti bolognese there, we seen was under 700 calories, which for a meal out isn't actually that bad. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
You go in,
Yeah.
that's sort of what I would do. But again, if you don't like spaghetti bolognese, I would never ask you to get spaghetti bolognese just because you're doing like a diet. But have a little look, and that's the good thing about tracking in advance as well, is you can have a little play around with the options you like. If it made no difference to your life whether you had the spaghetti bolognese or a carbonara and you fancy both, and you're like, well, the bolognese is 500 calories less than the carbonara, then I'll just get the bolognese. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Alcohol, right? Everyone get the notepads out. I'm sure you're all interested in this one. Hannah, you hit the nail on the head. With alcohol, when it comes to alcohol, you basically try and take it from your carbs and your fats. But I would never ask someone to sit down and try and work out carbs and fats on alcohol, because we're not bodybuilders, we're not dieting for the extreme. We're here to lose a little bit of weight, enjoy life, and find a good balance. And that's what I want you to do, and that's exactly how I want you to diet. So again, if you know you drink a certain drink, so let's say, for example, who's my go-to drink is Hannah. What's your go-to drink?
Probably like a vodka cranberry or like a vodka Coke of some sort, probably something vodka.
Yeah, right, let's go vodka, right? So even there, we're not even using diet drinks, we're going for a vodka Coke. If you know that's your go-to drink and that's what you normally drink, be aware of how many calories are in that one drink. So I know I drink Corona. So if I have a bottle of Corona, that's 149 calories. We'll call it 150. I'll give them a calorie back. So I know if I'm going out and I'm having 5 Coronas, right? I've got to go 5 times 149. You're never going to do this before a big night out, but that's 750 calories. So if I'm taking my higher day for social events and I'm having 5 Coronas, I would just take 750 off my higher day and try and say, for example, my higher day was, for argument's sake, 1,750. I'd make sure I ate 1,000 calories through the day, prioritizing protein, veg, fruit, all the micronutrients, and staying full, and use that extra 750 for alcohol. Again, that's easily said when you're keeping a limit on alcohol. If you're having a much heavier night, obviously my advice would just be eat light in the day, be sensible with alcohol. Alcohol has a huge impact on dieting, not necessarily. So what happens with alcohol is your body has no storage for alcohol. So your body uses carbs, fats, and protein. And I said the other week, it cannot physically store alcohol. So what it does, your body thinks it's got food, and then it works really, really hard to push out the toxins, which then impacts your sleep, and then your sleep impacts your hunger. I'm not going into the details of it, but alcohol basically ruins your sleep, impacts hunger, causes you to fall off your diet. So if you are having alcohol, obviously I want you to enjoy life, but keep things relatively less over the next 6 weeks, and you're going to find dieting easier. That's what I would say, but I still want you to enjoy life. Any more questions on alcohol and how to make it fit in, whether you need to do anything about it? The simplest way to do it is literally save yourself an amount of calories and be sensible and drink a lot lighter whilst trying to diet. Remember, dieting's not forever, and the quicker you get to where you want to be and where you're happier, your calories are no longer like 1,300, 1,400, 1,500 calories. It goes, you get an extra 500 calories a day because you're maintaining weight. So for example, just to give you an indication, when I was doing my photo shoot, I was sitting somewhere around 1,800 to 2,000 calories because I wanted weight to come down. I'm now trying to maintain weight, and I've got an extra 1,000 calories on top of that. So I can use that 1,000 calories for sweets, chocolates, alcohol, whatever I want, and my weight shouldn't go up as long as I'm sensible. So that's the real goal. The goal isn't weight loss, the goal is maintenance. Any questions on alcohol, eating out at weekends, or anything, or good sort of choices, these bad choices on a weekend? Meals on the go? No. Good. So that should probably cover the best part of everything. I'll just quickly summarize it all. So the main things that I want you to take away from today is, one, stop being so fucking hard on yourselves. That's the most important thing. Option number 2 is meal prep and tracking in advance. Save staple meals. Anything above 25 grams of protein is probably a good thing to save. Have something that I call like a macro hitter, like for example, my chicken, peppers, courgettes, etc. Who sent me it today? It was Karis. Karis sent me her meal prep, and it was literally that. And then she was like, I think one day she was going to have with wraps, another day she was going to have with something else. So yeah, that's good. And I think someone else said they meal prep and they use different spices each day to make it taste a little bit different, even though it's the same meal. I do that with my yogurt. I've got a 0% fat Greek yogurt and I put whey protein in it. One day I have chocolate digestive, one day I have Biscoff, one day I just have like dairy milk. And I know it's mad, it's the same meal, but it tastes different. That sounds so boring when you say it out loud, but it does, I promise. And yeah, so making sure like you're tracking in advance, have some meals that make your life easier. If you're busy and you're stressed, go to your library, pick your easiest option for meal prep and just meal prep your lunch. Make sure your lunch is covered, and you're probably going to put yourself in the best part of the position. Rooney, I'm picking on you here because you've been open in the group, and I think you said a lot of it was coming down to not being prepared and picking up meals on the go for work. So if you can get your lunch sorted and take all the stress away from everything else, I don't really care about your breakfast and your dinner. Get that lunch sorted, and that will put you on the right path.
Sorry, mate.
I think you literally said in the group as well, the first thing you done was you went to the shop and you didn't know what to get for lunch and you picked up.
Yeah, I went to Roberts and got a prawn sandwich, and then I can't remember what it was, Fridge Raiders, because I just thought loads of protein would have helped.
Yeah,
Then I just popped it, came home and ate a load of chicken sausages and that, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And you'll find a lot of people, I think Emily and Nicole, they're not on the call, but a lot of it comes from your lunch, not being prepared for lunch, and you think, fuck it, I might as well, I've ruined the day now. Do you know what I mean? No one really starts with anything other than their lunch. So from experience, yeah, Zoe's just putting gym kitchen meals from the co-op, very good for, she's realized I just said gym kitchen and not Gym King. Gym kitchen meals from the co-op are good. You've got Kirsty's or Christie's, feel free to correct me if you know that one, Zoe, from the co-op as well, and you get the cook range. I think the gym kitchen are perfect if you are really struggling for lunch or you're struggling for dinner and you need to pick something up. The reason I wouldn't have them every single day is because they're really high in salt, but as like 1 or 2 days off, if you're really struggling, pick up one of them from the co-op. And again, on that, I'll talk about salt and scale weight next week. Salt makes your weight go up, which is obviously throws the scales off, but we'll talk about that next week. I'll quite quickly, I know it's that half an hour's up, I'll quickly touch on meals on the go, just as Zoe's touched on it there. So what I tend to do is I have 3 options. I have my breakfast that I make myself, an option that I would pick up from like a co-op, a Tesco, or Waitrose, and then I'd have an option that I'd pick up from, sorry, Josh, I know you're from Guernsey, and I think we've got some people from the UK on the call as well. What I would do from there is have an option that I would pick up from like a Cooper's, a Bean Around the World, let's call it a Starbucks, a Costa Coffee. So for example, my porridge, using breakfast example, my option 1 would be I make it at home, I'd have my porridge. My option 2 would be I would pick up one of them fuel pots from the co-op and Tesco's, say for example, the protein porridge pots, because I can track that. Option 3 would be I'd go to Starbucks and get the porridge from that in order to hit my macros. Lunch, like I said, I'd make my chicken fajitas. Option 2 from the co-op would be I'd go get a gym kitchen from the co-op, so I know I can track it. Option 3 would be like I'd probably go to like a sandwich shop and just pick up a chicken fajita style wrap. And that's what you do for dinner. Dinner, again, if you're picking like options, 1 I would make, let's call it a prawn stir fry. That'd be option 1. Option 2 would be going to a co-op, picking up a pack of prawns, picking up some ready-made stir fry because I'm prepared it, which would be similar to your dinner, or like a gym kitchen ready meal, just making sure it's done. Option 3, obviously you're now talking the evening, I'd probably go to a Thai and I'd pick up a stir fry. I'd probably pour some of the sauce out, have half the portion of rice just to cut back some calories. And the same with like your snacks. Option 1 would be you'd make, for example, your Greek yogurt with your whey protein. Option 2 is you can't be asked doing that. You just pick up a grenade bar from the shop. Option 3, you're out and about. You would just try and pick up some snack that's similar. You're not going to go and ask someone if they've got a protein shake you can just quickly neck. Do you know what I mean? So it's doing that on the go and having them options and just thinking, right, I haven't made my lunch. What's my go-to lunch? I haven't made my dinner. What's my go-to dinner? And like you said, you think like having gym kitchen and just remembering things like that are perfect. So thanks for sharing that, Zoe. I will let you go because some of you probably need to still eat your dinner. Has anyone got any last questions before I end the call? No. Right. Hopefully that helped with, like I said, main thing to take away is meal prepping and tracking in advance and going easy on yourselves. And obviously common off the back of meal prep is you're eating out at weekends and being sensible. If you are stressing about a weekend and a meal out, post it in the group because you won't be the only one. And even if they're not going for an Italian, they're going for a Thai, I'll be able to provide the same advice and it will work all round. So have a wonderful evening, everyone, and keep doing what you're doing. Go easy on yourself, focus on the wins, and we'll have another great week. And I will speak to you through the week anyway. Oh, winner! I'll post the winners. I'll let everyone go. I'll post the winners of the challenge and next week's challenge in the group. Right, have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thanks, Logan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.